Hey Mixer, Graham here from therecordingrevolution.com. And this is a series that's going to show you all the basics of how to mix a song using a variety of Waves plugins. Now, in this video in particular, we're looking at vocals. I'm going to teach you how to get your vocals to sit up front in the mix, the way you hear them on all your favorite songs on the radio. Now, we're going to start with the lead vocal and then move on to the background vocals. And it's a very, very simple process. Take a listen to what I'm doing first. I want to show you the before and after, and then we'll dive into the plugins. Here's the lead vocal in the hook when everything is happening. And notice how it's a little buried at first, but when we bring in these three plugins, it jumps out of the mix in a very musical way. Much nicer. So what's going on here? Well, let's take them all off. Here's the raw vocal.
Invincible, we are incredible.
It sounds fine. There's a couple of issues I hear. One is on the EQ side of things. It's a little closed off, some weird frequencies going on, and I wanted it to sound a little more natural. So I had to go hunting, and I'm using the SSL E channel. It's a very musical sounding EQ that's great on vocals. And I took out around 3 dB of 500 hertz. This just doesn't sound very good on most vocals. Take a listen to what this frequency is doing.
Invincible, we are incredible. There's no way that.
Something in his voice, in that room, in the vocal booth just didn't sound good, and it's there in the recording, so I found it, cut it out a little bit. Then I also cut out around 1.1K. Take a listen to what this sounds like.
Invincible, we are incredible.
Yeah, that frequency I noticed a little bit in the voice just sounded harsh and aggressive, and we don't need it to be that. We want it to be silky and smooth here. So I took out those frequencies. I also rolled off some low end with a high pass filter. So what I've really done is cleaned up in 3 areas, cleaned up what doesn't need to be there. And then and only then did I do a little bit of a top end boost with the shelf here at 8K. Just a 2.4 dB boost to really open up the breathiness, which is nice. So take a listen to what the EQ is doing all by itself.
Invincible, we are incredible. There's no way that we will fall. We gotta stay strong, stay strong.
Little more clear and more natural. I followed that with some compression on the SSL because it just sounds really, really good, and it's going to contain it a little bit. So take a listen to what that's doing.
Invincible, we are incredible. There's no way that we will fall. We gotta.
A little bit more up front. That's the key. Compression will make things sound up front. So I did a little bit of compression here, not heavy, but it just brings the vocal forward. So if I bypass the whole channel strip, you can hear the difference we made.
Invincible, we are incredible. There's no way that we will fall. We gotta stay strong, stay strong.
Very nice. One thing I like to do to really make a vocal stick through a dense mix, especially if you have a lot of instruments going, is to follow that slightly EQ'd and slightly compressed vocal with more compression. Again, another compressor, but gentle. So I'm using Renaissance Vox, which is a very easy to use, a very good sounding vocal compressor because it just allows you to just simply dial in the compression. It's like a one knob thing. I really love plugins like LA2As, where there's just 2 knobs and you dial it in, and this reminds me of that completely. You just dial in the compression setting, and then you can adjust the output. So take a listen to what I'm doing here with this vocal compressor.
Invincible, we are incredible. There's no way that we will fall. We gotta stay strong, stay strong.
Very smooth sounding, right? It not only brings it more up front, I think this compressor makes the vocal sound fuller. Love the RVox. So, so good. And the only other thing I've done here is a little bit of de-esser. This just kind of cleans up some of the S sounds that can be a little harsh And I notice this on a lot of amateur mixes where the vocal might sound great, but S's are never captured by microphones very naturally. So they usually need a little bit of help to get rid of that unnatural S sound so that what we hear is a more natural sounding vocal. So this just cleaned it up a little bit. And the difference is really, really nice with all three together. Again, I'll take all three off.
Invincible, we are incredible. There's no way that we will fall. We gotta stay strong, stay strong.
Even in solo, it sounds better, but you heard it originally in the context of the mix. Now, the one other thing I want to show you is about background vocals. On this song, there's about 8 or 9 background vocal tracks, harmonies, doubles, all that kind of fun stuff. And what's going on here is I've routed them all to one track called BGVs, background vocals, so that I don't have to use a lot of processing on all of them. You know, they're all going to be treated like one background vocal stack in my mind. So I like to run them into their own track and then EQ them all at once. And I'm using the Renaissance EQ just to roll off some low end. This way that the background vocals don't have too much beef. They just need to be plenty of mid-range, nothing too low. So I just cleaned them up a little bit. And then I followed that with an LA2A. This is the CLA2A from Waves, which again, just much like the RVox I just showed you, a very simple compressor. You just have the peak reduction knob, which tells you how much compression you want, and then the output volume so you can make it louder or quieter or level balance it. This is a very smooth optical compressor that I think grabs background vocals very gently, very nicely, and allows them to not just be all over the place with volume, like sometimes loud, sometimes quiet. It puts them all up front in a way that you can hear them nicely. So take a listen to what this is doing on the background vocals.
Invincible, we are incredible. There's no way that we will fall. We gotta stay strong, stay strong. Invincible, we are incredible. There's no way that we will fall. We gotta stay strong, stay strong.
This is subtle, but what it's allowing is the loud parts of the background vocals to be the same as they were, but it's the quiet words that fall off a bit to now be the same volume as the loud parts. So it's a real nice way to get the background vocals to cut through. So in context with the mix, I'm going to bypass the processing we did on the lead vocal and the processing we did on the background vocals here, so you can hear what happens to all the vocals when we take away that.
Invincible, we are incredible. There's no way that we will fall. We gotta stay strong, stay strong. Invincible, we are incredible. There's no way that we will fall. We gotta stay strong, stay strong in this life.
There you have it. A little bit of EQ and compression is the secret to getting your vocals to really cut through the mix. Now that does it for this video. In the next video, I'm going to show you how to bring in some strategic reverb and delay to really fill out the sound of your tracks so they sound more like they were recorded in a nice studio and maybe not in a bedroom.